Hello, good day, good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Ask Abhijit show. I hope everybody is doing great. Everyone's doing fantastic. It's great to see you all. I would like to thank all of you who wrote all those comments yesterday and today as well in response to my video. I really appreciate it. I could not respond to everybody's comments individually, but thank you so much, everybody. Whatever everything you said, it really means a lot to me. And I would also like to tell you that next week, uh, in the Ask Abhijit show, which will happen next weekend, we will do a history special. I will take questions from the comments about history only. It's been very geopolitics focused the past few months, but yeah, next week we'll do a history special next weekend. So the questions from the comments, I'll take questions about history. Today I've chosen lots of geopolitics questions. Anyway, let's see who all is there on the live chat. I can see Somi Jain from Jaipur, Bharat First, Chaitanya Manjula, Manuja, Sanidhya Kumar. Happy Raksha Bandhan to everybody. Happy Raksha Bandhan. Rashmi Rathore from Rajasthan. Deep. Binayak Das. Suhas Reddy. Supratim Datta. Nungar Singh Chauhan. Hello, sir. Shri Ramchandra Namaha. Namaste. Somi Jain. Kaushik Mukherjee. Mr. Jam. Radhe Radhe. James Pangambam. Good evening. Ashit KS. Say my name. Well, very Breaking Bad, isn't it? Pamel Nandi. Mriganka Sekhar Biswas. Happy Raksha Bandhan. Samana Satish, Binayak Das, Avinash, Sri Hari Arjun, Deep, Samarth Tripathi, Anish Panchal from Calgary, Ayush Singh, Hitesh Karki. Who else do we have? I can see Nikhil Elayat from New Zealand. Well, good to see you, sir. Ashit Vladimir Putin is there. Jai Shri Ram, Mr. Vladimir Putin. Sagar Katkam, Vedant Kulkarni, Hitanshu Mehta from Gujarat. Good evening. Geopolitical Dubey from Indore. Hello. Samarth again. Ayush. Spurti Uttori, Namaste. Shri Jawaharlal Nehru ji is there. Namaste ji. Pranay Paul from Kolkata. Good evening. Sagar Thorat. Who else do we have? Yashagna. Anupam Bora. Sanidhya Kumar, Andromeda live from West Bengal. Utsav Khatri from Ahmedabad. Anirudh Pai. Savarya Seth. Soham Kulkarni. Diling Pegu from Assam. Shashank Kaushik. Uju. And so many, sir. So many people. Thank you so much, all of you, for being on the live chat. I will take it off the screen now. And let's take some questions. Let's begin with the questions that I have picked. Lots of these. Let's take as many as possible today. So we have a couple of questions from McLevin and Pranay Paul. The IAF, the Indian Air Force, has announced that we downed multiple F-16 fighter planes during the Operation Sindoor, and the timing is interesting. This was announced today. The IAF chief, says Pranay, has officially revealed details of shooting down 5 Pakistani jets and 1 AWACS aircraft during Operation Sindoor, along with F-16s destroyed on the ground. What's the strategic significance of revealing this now, 3 months after the event? What does the timing indicate? Very interesting timing. Very interesting timing. So the IAF knew what it had achieved. It knew that it had shot down X number, let's say 5, I think it was 5 that was said, right? 5 Pakistani fighter planes of various kinds, 1 AWACS. I mean, these rumors have been around for quite some time, but it was never officially confirmed by the IAF. So 1 AWACS, 5 Pakistani fighter jets, multiple F-16s destroyed on the ground, many runways destroyed, many aircraft hangars, many air bases hit, and so on. But this point about 5 fighter planes being shot down by the S-400 system, that hasn't been officially confirmed until now. So the Indian Air Force has revealed this today. That's what? It's been 3 months roughly since Operation Sindoor took place, right? May to June, June to July. Yeah, three months now. 3 months ago, it was happening. Operation Sindoor. It was the second day 3 months ago. So we have chosen to announce this today. What does it mean? Why wasn't this announced earlier? The Pakistanis were running wild with their propaganda that they shot down 700 Indian aircraft and God knows what not, right? And their propaganda was being amplified by the Western media. And we knew that we had done all this. We had shot down 5 fighter planes and caused so much so-and-so quantum of destruction on the ground, F-16s destroyed and so on. We did not speak about it. Why? Looks like the government did not want to uh, put the Americans in a delicate position. They did not want to upset the Americans because there was the possibility of a trade deal, right? Those days, the trade deal, there were multiple deadlines the Americans had imposed upon us for agreeing to a trade deal with them. So, because there was the possibility of a trade deal, a good, mutually beneficial trade deal, that's why it looks like the government chose to suppress this information. That's what it looks like. And the Pakistanis were allowed to run wild, rampage with their propaganda. And the Western media obviously amplified it. Right? So that's what it looks like. Like the government was, it did not want to offend or upset the Americans and put them in a delicate position where they have to reveal, where it's revealed that their assets were destroyed. And where you have F-16s, you also have American personnel on the ground. If India destroyed multiple F-16s on the ground, it means that it's possible that American personnel were hit, because we know that wherever you have Pakistani F-16s, which are obviously American aircraft bought from the US, the Americans have personnel on the ground who always 24/7 babysit the F-16s and never let the aircraft out of their sight. Right? So all of this happened, and we kept quiet about it. We did not reveal it so that the Americans aren't displeased. Now that Trump has launched an all-out offensive against India, now that he has launched an all-out offensive against India, he is cozying up with Pakistan. He's inviting the Pakistani fellow, Asim Munir, for a second visit and so on. So it's clear that the Trump administration, the Trump regime, has decided to go all in on Pakistan. So now, and they've imposed 50% tariffs on India. They're threatening way more tariffs, maybe 500% tariffs, whatnot. So, I mean, if the gloves are off, let them be off. So it looks like that's why this was revealed today, right? But it's kind of a shame that the Pakistanis were allowed to just run wild with the propaganda. And yeah, I mean, lots of people have ended up believing that Pakistan scored significant successes against India because of the propaganda that was amplified by the Western media. Anyhow, so that's the thing. So this indicates, what does this indicate? Big picture, a deterioration in India-US relations. And this indicates that India is no longer concerned about offending or not offending the US. Looks like the gloves are off, and looks like relations have gone backwards 30, 40, 50 years, like the days of the old Cold War, the 20th century Cold War. India and the US were always on opposing sides those days. So whatever strategic trust may have been built up over the past few decades, everything seems to have eroded now. And we are back to square one. So India-US relations are really rocky right now. This is what this indicates. Okay, Mriganka Sekhar Biswas says, is the US, by extending a second state visit to the Pakistani guy, the dictator, Asim Munir, the de facto dictator, Asim Munir, the head of the military, is the US, by extending the second state visit to this guy, to this individual, subtly nurturing a future military Musharraf to safeguard its strategic interests in Pakistan? Absolutely. Absolutely. So the US is not, say, the Trump regime isn't inviting the current Pakistani prime minister for any sort of visit. Who's the current prime minister of Pakistan? I think it's the Sharif guy, right? The brother of Nawaz Sharif, Shehbaz Sharif. As far as I remember, that was the Pakistani prime minister last I checked. He isn't being entertained by the US. It's Asim Munir, the head of the military, Pakistani military. So we know that it's the military that runs Pakistan, and so the US always has this preference. The US has historically always preferred to deal with dictators, because dictators can get things done fast. If you go through the democratic process and the officially elected people and all, it's a slow, long, cumbersome process. And who wants to go through that? Let's deal with dictators. And that's why the US has a track record of installing dictators wherever they can. And Pakistan has been one of their very significant assets, very reliable assets. So the US is dealing, the Trump regime is dealing with Asim Munir. They're dealing with the military dictatorship in Pakistan. They're completely bypassing the so-called official sovereign, democratic, allegedly democratically elected, whatever, government of Pakistan. The US doesn't believe in niceties and keeping up appearances or whatever. Let's straight away deal with the dictator. And that's how it goes. So the US is going all in on Pakistan, right? It's very clear now. Um, Trump himself, he is heavily invested in Pakistan oil and gas sector, cryptocurrency sector. He seeks to exploit Pakistan's rare earths mineral sector, and so on, so on, and so forth, so much more. So Trump is personally invested in Pakistan. The Trump regime is going all in on Pakistan, and that's what we are seeing. So it's a complete bypass of the so-called civilian government in Pakistan, and they're dealing straight with the military. So that is how things are going to be going forward. Okay, multiple questions about the same topic. Ayush Singh says, PM Modi is visiting China. Putin is coming here as well to India. What are the chances of RIC, Russia, India, China, the sort of alliance or coalition, even if everyone of us knows that China is a spoiler? Well, if you've seen my geostrategy episodes, you will know that China has been a spoiler when it comes to RIC as well as BRICS. Historically, that's the role that China has always played, and I've shown that with all the evidence you can ask for. Amisha says, PM Modi visiting China for the SCO summit, Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit, amid Trump's 50% tariffs on India. Brazil's president says, I won't humiliate myself. I will not talk to Trump. I'll talk to Xi, Putin, Modi. Can BRICS nations really counter America? McLevin says, PM Modi is visiting China, and many leaders, including BRICS leaders, are visiting India. Are we forming a new alliance? We are witnessing in real time the reordering of global alliances of the geopolitical world order. Are we moving towards a bipolar world? Are we going to usher in an era of multipolarity? Well, these days will tell us. The 4 events of the next couple of years will tell us exactly what's going to happen, which direction we're going in. So first of all, what are the chances of RIC? Well, China has historically been a spoiler, but now China seems to be at least verbally extending olive branches to India. The Chinese have always preferred to deal with Russia. They would like to see Russia become a Chinese vassal, ideally, from the situation, and why not from their perspective, right? And they've always, well, we know the Chinese approach towards India historically, how it's been, right? But now the Chinese are making nice statements and welcoming Prime Minister Modi. Mr. Wang Yi is arriving in India pretty soon. He's the Chinese foreign minister. So I think it looks like we are going towards a certain direction where India, China, Russia, and other nations, BRICS nations, and other nations as well beyond that, may seek to work together in a mutually beneficial way. Because everyone's facing the assault from the US, the tariffs, right? Essentially, tariffs are that you are excluded from the US market. I mean, if you're going to play in the US market, you're going to be not very competitive or terribly uncompetitive. That's the deal with tariffs. So it looks like there could be the possibility of something more substantial, something more robust emerging around RIC, around BRICS, or something like that. So, of course, Brazil's president said that I will not humiliate myself. I will not talk to Trump. And recently I myself said I would not want Mr. Modi to have a phone conversation with Mr. Trump, because Trump will try to extract maximalist concessions from Mr. Modi. And their personal relationship is such that, certain things which you can deny, which you can say no to the US when it comes to diplomatic negotiations between diplomats, maybe at the top level you cannot do such things. So I would not want Mr. Modi to speak with Mr. Trump. Let Trump ask for a phone call, deny it, right? So the question that Amisha is asking is, can the BRICS nations really counter America? Ayush is asking, what are the chances of RIC? McLovin is asking, are we forming a new alliance? Well, time will tell us. But, it makes sense for the nations who are in the firing line to band together, to come together. But see, BRICS is not really an alliance. It's a coalition of nations. It's an economic organization with shared economic interests in a kind of a common minimum program kind of thing. But BRICS in itself is not something that can really counter the US. You need a proper economic alliance with clearly laid down ground rules, and that sort of thing. A proper framework, proper robust framework, economic alliance. That's what you need to really stand up to the US and counter uh, the Trump regime's economic actions of essentially dismantling the global economic order, right? So Trump is behaving like the emperors of old. If he likes you, then he will give you preferential treatment. If you have somehow offended him, he's going to impose tariffs on you, that sort of thing. So the old economic order, the World Trade Organization, all of that is being like swept aside. None of that matters anymore, and Trump will deal with everybody on a one-to-one basis. So when you have something like that happening, the nations that are in the firing line, especially the nations that are the big ones that the US wants to, let's say, contain or whatever, they need to get together and have a proper formal official alliance with clearly laid down ground rules, and maybe a treaty of some kind. If that happens, then you could say that we are forming a new alliance. It will happen only if RIC can agree to the ground rules. And historically, China has been the spoiler. Now let's see what role China plays now. It looks like this time, well, at least the words, not the actions, the words thus far, they kind of indicate that China may be interested in something this time. So we will have to see. We will have to see. Can we trust China? Is China potentially a reliable partner? If we form some kind of alliance, economic alliance, treaty alliance, can we rely on them, or will they immediately start bending the rules or whatever? All of that will have to be looked into. China's track record isn't good, but we'll have to see. So it looks like there are moves towards that direction, RIC kind of thing. But let's see. I think it's still early days. It will all depend on China. It will also depend on Mr. Modi and Mr. Putin and how the three leaders go about things. And I think that Mr. Wang Yi's visit to India, which will happen before Mr. Modi goes to to Beijing, that's going to be essentially something that sets the tone for what's going to happen during the SCO summit and thereafter. So we'll have a better picture in a few days. So let's wait and watch. Right, more questions about about India US. So Pranay says, what's the geopolitical and national interest POV point of view significance of Prime Minister Modi openly acknowledging a heavy price that he's ready to pay to protect farmers, fishermen, and dairy interests? Isn't such a personal cost massive even to contemplate in today's geopolitical chessboard? Ashish says, what personal cost did Prime Minister Modi hint towards when he declared that he will do whatever it takes to protect India's sovereignty? Is that a coup that he's referring to? A regime change? Assassination? What are our options going forward? What are our options going forward now that we have refused to be vassalized? Kind of feeling proud about it, to be honest. Potato Praiser says Mr. Modi in his recent speech said that he will even have to bear a personal cost for not agreeing to open the farm sector for US companies. Does this hint that Prime Minister Modi was possibly threatened that somebody may restart the regime change activities which were going on during the Biden regime? Yeah, interesting set of questions. Prime Minister Modi recently made a statement, very brief statement. He briefly said that he is prepared to pay whatever price is required to protect India's sovereignty, and he will have to possibly bear a significant personal cost for this. That's what he said. That's what Prime Minister said. Mr. Modi said. So what does he mean by this? That's the question that everyone's wondering about. That's kind of a cryptic statement. And he did not mention what kind of price he's talking about, what kind of personal price he will have to bear. So and Ashish is saying, what does it mean? Is it a coup? Is it a regime change operation? Assassination attempt? What exactly is it? Right? That's the question. And Ashish says he is feeling proud that we have refused to be vassalized. Well, I'm personally feeling very happy and very proud that India has refused to be vassalized. It's the easy option. Just cave in to the Americans, do whatever they say, and everything is hunky and dory. And Prime Minister gets special treatment by Mr. Trump. You are invited to the US and you're given very super red carpet treatment, and you're treated like a personal friend and all that. So that's the easy way out. But Prime Minister Modi said, I will not go for that. India has to remain a sovereign nation. We will not be an American vassal. We will be nobody's vassal. And we are seeing the consequences of that. All the tariffs, all the tantrums, the cozying up to Pakistan, and all of that is a consequence of that. It indicates that we have refused to be vassalized. And that is really commendable. I'm so proud that we have a leader who has stood up to the US. It's not often that we have leaders who do that in this country, in our history since 1947, right? We are standing up on our own. So that's the thing. So what personal cost, what personal price may the Prime Minister have to potentially pay? What was it referring to? You may see. So, and what are the options that you gave? Sovereignty, coup, regime change, assassination. You know what? During the 2024 elections, there was foreign interference in the elections, in the electoral process. No question about it. There was foreign interference. There were huge, consistent, ongoing, daily attacks, attempts by the Western media to sway the election in a certain direction, to favor a certain, political dispensation in India. And it was all anti-Modi, anti-BJP. This is external interference in India's democratic process, sovereign democratic process. And the Western media, we all know who controls that. I mean, do I have to beat around the bush? No, it's the US. It's the US, right? So they tried to influence the course of the election in 2024, right? The farmer protests, the Delhi riots, all of that was instigated by a foreign power, exactly when Trump was visiting India. It was all instigated by a foreign power. The Americans have this policy of subnational diplomacy, of engaging in subnational diplomacy in India, which is what? Nothing but essentially trying to create fissures in India's makeup. It's essentially a long-term plan to balkanize India. What is Project K, Cookie Land for Christ? That is an American project. The civil war in Burma, that also is a proxy war between essentially the US and China. So regime change, yeah, potentially. We don't know. See, it is now being said by the Western media that the relationship between the two countries, India and the US, it nosedived after a tense, like 20 or 30-minute phone call between Prime Minister Modi and President Trump during Operation Sindoor. So I'm not sure what conversation happened, what Mr. Trump may have threatened. It looks like some threats were issued. It looks like that. We don't know. We don't have the readout of the conversation. It obviously is not meant for public consumption. But I'll tell you what, I've said this before many times. Diplomacy is very nice in the public domain. The public diplomacy is always very courteous, very polite, or kind of frosty at times. But behind closed doors, diplomacy is all about bullying, arm twisting, issuing naked threats. That's what diplomacy is like behind closed doors. It's not the nice stuff that you see on camera. So I don't know what conversation happened and what threats may have been issued, but looks like some threats were issued. Threats to the country, threats to Mr. Modi potentially, personally, we don't know. But that's how it goes. So if you are the prime minister of a country, you essentially, you have to be willing to pay any price that's required for in order to preserve the security and the sovereignty of a country. And so that's possibly what Mr. Modi was talking about. I think when it comes to threats, all options are on the cards. If you look at the history of American actions against countries they don't like, you will say that all potential options are on the table. So I think that's what Mr. Modi was referring to. Okay. Anjana Malviya says, what will be the end of the tariffs drama? If there's a 500% tariff on India, then what will be the consequences? Is this the most vulnerable time for India's sovereignty? And what are the chances of India becoming a vassal in the coming days? I think, let me answer the last part of the question first of all. The way the India-US relationship is going now, there's no chance of India becoming a vassal. India has the leadership in India, Prime Minister Modi, he's made a very clear decision. We will not cave into the US. The US is essentially the maximalist demands the US is making, the Trump regime is making, they essentially designed to vassalize India. And India is going to be nobody's vassal. So that is guaranteed. India has made the decision now. And I think a lot of people have been, well, caught unawares by that. I think a lot of people were expecting India to cave in and to kind of become a quasi vassal of the US. And that's not happened. It's surprised a lot of people. I think it has shocked Donald Trump. I don't think he was expecting this. So I think the chances of India becoming a vassal of the US are zero. And that is fantastic. That is something, well, I'm so happy to see that. Is this a most vulnerable time for India's sovereignty? I think it's not that vulnerable a time for India's sovereignty. Now that the decision to not become a vassal has been taken, it means that India is going to remain sovereign. India will obviously have to pay a price for remaining sovereign, but India will remain sovereign, right? Now, is there a 500? If there's a 500% tariff on India, what will be the consequences, and what's going to be the end state of the tariffs drama? So let me explain what these tariffs are. What are these tariffs? What does it mean that they've imposed X amount of tariffs on India? Right now, it's 50%. Does it mean that we are paying 50% of something to Donald Trump and his regime? It doesn't mean that. Let me explain what tariffs are. The US is an entity, it's a nation which imports a lot of stuff from the whole world. It's the biggest market in the world, right? Their population, 330 something million, that's their population. Super rich country. They're the biggest consumer market in the world. And most of what they consume is imported from other countries because the cost of manufacturing is so high in the US. Hourly wages are so high in the US. So that's why they have everything manufactured in other countries like China in the past. And now they're looking for alternatives to China. So goods are manufactured in non-US countries, and those are imported into the US. So when Trump says that I'm going to impose 50% tariffs on Indian goods, let's say, what does it mean? It means that when goods are exported from India to the US, let's say it costs the list price is $100. So India will export it at $100. But the company that's importing it, so let's say there is company A, there's company B. Company A is an Indian company which is exporting the goods to company B. So company A and company B have a contract that company B, the importer, will pay so and so price to company A for the goods that are being imported. Okay, company B is American, company A is Indian. So whatever the contract is will be honored, and company B, the American company, will pay as per the contract to the Indian company, whatever the contractual agreement is. So the Indian company will make the money, will get the money from the American company. Now, when the American company takes those goods and sells them in the US market, they're going to have to pay 50% tariffs on that. So if something cost $100 used to cost $100, now they're going to have to pay a price of $150. They're going to have to put it on the market at $150. This means that the American public will have to buy the goods at $150 instead of $100. So essentially, it's the American companies and the American people, the population, that are paying money to Donald Trump and his administration. Excuse me. So this makes these goods that are imported from India 50% more expensive. But the Indian company gets the contractually mandated amount. It's the American companies and American public that are paying the American government 50% more. That's 50% tariffs. Who is paying the brunt? Who is paying the price? It's the American companies and American people who are paying the price to Donald Trump. India is paying nothing. Of course, so what's the objective of this tariffs? The objective of these tariffs is to disincentivize American companies from importing stuff from India. So maybe then they will say, okay, we'll stop importing. But it's not India that's paying the price. It's the US that's paying the price. It's the American companies and American people. What's going to be the end state of this? How does this go? I think Trump is going to completely reorder the world. He's going to completely change the way trade is done in the world. So it's going to end up being something like the company. There's going to be a bunch of countries which have to pay lower tariffs, and a bunch of countries that have to pay very high tariffs. Which means those countries aren't paying it; the American people are paying it. But eventually, what it will achieve is that American companies will stop will do less trade eventually with countries that are in the higher tariff bracket. So it means that if India is, let's say Donald Trump imposes 500% tariffs on India, it means that India will essentially in some time lose access to the US market, which is the biggest market in the world. So that will be bad for trade. So it means that the volume of trade will come down, and the kind of money that India could have made from exporting goods and services to the US, that will now drop significantly. So it's bad for the Indian economy, and it could have a significant non-trivial impact on India's GDP growth rate. So the RBI has said that in 2026 we are expected to grow, our economy is expected to grow at around 6.5%. But if this sort of thing happens for 500% tariffs or something like that, there could be a drop of 0.4% roughly. So instead of growing at 6.5%, our GDP will grow at 6.1% only, which is a significant dent in our GDP growth. So that's the kind of impact it can have. And if Trump forces his vassal states, allied nations, EU nations, and whatnot to also implement such tariffs on India, it could hit India's economy even further. And Trump is capable of forcing other countries into eventually playing this game. So that's de facto sanctions on India or Brazil or whoever is being targeted in this manner. So eventually it's going to bipolarize the world. Yeah, the world not multipolarize, potentially multipolarize also, depending on how things go. So that will obviously cause significant reactions around the world, and it could end up creating an RIC coalition, or maybe an RIC plus BRICS plus kind of coalition, and maybe there could be a formal economic alliance against the US. Who knows? We'll have to see. So that's the deal. Amisha says, many interesting developments are happening. Wang Yi is going to visit India this month. Prime Minister Modi will travel to China at the end of this month. Yeah, end of August. Mr. Putin will come to India later this year. That's correct. Brazil's president spoke with Prime Minister Modi on the phone. Looks like BRICS is getting stronger. The world order will change. Trump cannot dictate us on our foreign policy. I think Trump will chicken out soon. TACO, what are my thoughts? TACO stands for Trump always chickens out. That's a slogan that was coined in the US, not by us. So yeah, TACO means Trump always chickens out. So what's going to happen? So clearly the world order will have to change in response to Trump's actions. And it looks like it may happen. It probably will happen soon. There could be obviously now it looks like the interests of India, Russia, China, Brazil, many other nations, they work together. There is a significant convergence of interest now. The convergence of interest is that these nations all need to stand up to Trump's actions, the American actions. So there could be the emergence of new coalitions, new alliances. So it looks like that could happen. The world order will definitely change in response to Trump's actions. Trump obviously is not going to succeed in his quest to tell us what our foreign policy should look like. Clearly, that's not going to happen. I think he's been shocked. He's been caught unawares. He thought that he would be able to get away with it and dictate our foreign policy to us. Not happened, and I think he's stunned. I think he's furious as well, and he's kind of lost for what to do now. Should I just keep on ramping up the tariffs? 50% did not work. 75%, 100%, 500%. Go on, sir. Go on. So that's the dilemma for Mr. Trump right now. I think he will potentially increase it further and see how it goes. But beyond a certain point, the tariffs don't matter anymore. I think 50% is already that state. And maybe he's going to target India's IT sector and India's various other sectors. We'll have to see about that. So what's going to happen is the question. Will Trump chicken out? I think Trump is going to face a significant amount of backlash at home among his own voters. Because his own voters are now beginning to see it's been several months since Trump came to power. He hasn't achieved any of what he promised. He said that he would end the Ukraine war on day one. Not happened at all. He said that he will bring inflation down, prices down. Well, if you impose tariffs on various imports from various nations, the prices go up. So I think Trump is going to see a significant erosion of his voter base. There are some people who worship Trump. Those will keep on worshipping Trump, but most people who can think and see and observe what's happening, they're going to start losing faith in Trump. I think give it a year or so, Trump's approval ratings will be significantly lower than what they are. There's going to be midterm elections in the US, I think, in 2026, next year sometime. I think there may be significant political setbacks to him. And the last couple of years of his term, he may end up being a de facto, a virtually lame duck president. I think this is going to all come back to bite him, a sting in the tail. What India has to do is just to wait this out. Okay, another 3.5 years, no big deal. We're going to wait it out. So I think Trump is going to face a significant amount of backlash at home when the impact of these tariffs start biting the American public, the people who buy stuff. That's when this is going to start biting at the US. So let's say, and they're talking about ending the H-1B program or changing the H-1B program. I think if he starts doing that, India should simply declare that all H-1B visas are null and void, and India should give a 30-day time period to all Indians with H-1B visas to return home. I know it's going to be terrible for those who are working in the US because they have hopes and dreams and aspirations. But this is the direction in which things are going. So if India unilaterally ends, not unilaterally, but in response to Trump's provocations, if India ends the H-1B program and asks all H-1B visa holders to return to India, it's going to cause an immediate disruption in so many sectors in the US, in the IT sector, in the technology sector, in the Fortune 500 companies, and so much more. If Trump tries to target India's technology sector, India's tech sector or India's IT sector, India could in response to that end all services provided to the US, including BPO services, business process outsourcing. This would immediately throw the US in a crisis. All the Fortune 500 companies rely on India for BPO services, IT services. You end that, it's going to be a disaster for the US. When it comes to the medical sector, India exports about 40% of America's generic drugs. You end that, it's going to cause a healthcare crisis in the US, and Trump's approval ratings will go to zero. So if Trump wants to play the game, we can play the game, right? So I think, so these are the nuclear options. Essentially, we don't want to go there, but if Trump wants to play the game, we certainly are in a position to play the game. And after a certain point, tariffs don't matter anymore. Okay, instead of 50, make it 75. We don't care anymore. Make it 500 if you want. Make it 5,000. We don't care. After a certain point, it doesn't matter. So I think the people in the US they will see what's happening, and Trump's approval ratings will go down, and it's gonna cause a lot of trouble for Trump. So I think Trump will be faced with this dilemma. Should I bring the tariffs down? Well, then you are tacoing, aren't you? You're chickening out. So you can stay stuck with your ego and keep the tariffs high, but then that will cause the US public to stop believing in Trump, and that will be a disaster for Trump in the midterm elections. So Trump is going to face a huge crisis of his own making. I'm saying this today. Watch out. Let's see how it goes. I think Trump will end up ruining his actions. Okay, a couple of questions about uranium. Amisha says, Ministry of External Affairs of India statement called out the hypocrisy of the US on importing uranium from Russia. An Indian reporter asked Trump about this, and he said, I don't know anything about it. Another name of hypocrisy is Trump. Trump is using the leverage of being a superpower. He imposed additional 25% tariffs on India. Mr. Ajit Doval, the Indian National Security Advisor, visited Russia. How will India and Russia counter the US now? Pranay says, isn't this hypocrisy pro max? Trump threatening India over Russian oil while the US itself imports uranium and fertilizer from Moscow, and then claiming ignorance when asked. Does Washington still think that New Delhi will bend to such pressure tactics like before? Well, Trump has now realized that India is not going to bend to his pressure tactics. And his pressure tactics are not going to work at all. Beyond a certain amount of tariffs, it doesn't matter anymore. So is it hypocrisy? Of course it is hypocrisy. Europe is importing more oil and gas, way more oil and gas from Russia than India. But he is not going to look at that. China is importing plenty of oil and gas from Russia. Trump wouldn't look at that. The US itself is importing fertilizers, it's importing uranium hexafluoride from Russia. They won't look at that. But India is importing oil and gas. Terrible, evil, terrible. You're funding Putin's war effort. Are you people kidding me? Anyhow, that's how it is. This is obviously hypocrisy. But you see, like I've said in the past, hypocrisy indicates how powerful you are. Only the powerful can afford to be hypocritical. You've got to earn the right to be a hypocrite, and the US has earned this right by becoming the most powerful nation in the world. So they can have double standards. Hypocrisy means double standards, obviously, right? So yeah, it is hypocrisy, and so be it. It's okay. Let them play these double games. Let them have double standards. We're gonna keep on pointing it out for sure. Yes, and that's what we did in the past. The MEA would not have said this, that the US is being a hypocrite, but we have pointed it out very clearly this time. And Trump, if you look at his track record, he's shameless. He has no shame. So he was asked point blank by a reporter, and he said, "I don't know anything about it." All right, okay, we all know what the deal is. So look, that's the way of the world. The US has always been this sort of a nation, treating one nation with one set of standards and one set of rules, and other nations with other sets of rules. It's always been that sort of thing. They keep on harping about democracy, but they prop up dictators all around the world. They keep on harping about human rights. They flatten entire nations. Iraq, Libya. How many people died as a consequence of the US invasion of Iraq? As a consequence of what they did in Libya? Libya has been turned into an open air slave market by the Americans, as a consequence of American actions. Doesn't matter. No democracy, human rights required there, right? The US has always been this sort of nation. So it's no surprise that they are doing this. And I would recommend, I would invite all of you to study the US track record since 1945 until today. What are the major US interventions in Africa, major US interventions in other countries? What have been the kinds of interventions? What have been the consequences of those interventions? What kind of regime change operations have they done? Top 20 regime change operations done by the US and other nations. Check it out. Look it up. That will educate you as to what sort of track record the US actually has. So yes, it is hypocrisy. They say one thing but do something which is essentially the exact opposite of what they claim to stand for. They do this moral grandstanding, democracy, human rights. I mean, look at their track record. What is the US? I mean, look at the nature of the nation itself. You know what I call Pakistan, right? What do I call Pakistan? An artificial temporary nation. What is the US? It's, I don't know about temporary, but artificial, absolutely. The nation that's founded on genocide and slavery and so much more. So that's how it goes, Okay, so Abhishek says, how will India and Russia counter the US now? Well, we'll have to see about that. What can be done? So clearly, India is not going to buy US weapons, US F-35s or whatever. So I think there's going to be a strengthening of the India-Russia relationship. Let's not call it an alliance. It's a privileged relationship, a strategic relationship. And Mr. Modi recently tweeted he's looking forward to meeting his friend Mr. Putin, right? And the Russian readout said that Mr. Putin apprised Mr. Modi of the recent of the communications he had with the Americans, because India and Russia have a privileged relationship. So we will share such information. So there is going to be a significant strengthening of the India-Russia relationship. I expect that India will stop purchasing any kind of American weaponry. Whatever orders may be in the pipeline will be all frozen and cancelled. I think the Sukhoi 57 may happen, possibly. The S-500 may happen. Much more may happen. China could jump into the mix, possibly, depending on the Chinese approach towards all of this. So I think a lot is possible. A lot of synergy is possible between India and Russia to counter the US. Amisha says China experts are warning India that we are next in America's containment playbook. Well, I have been warning that as well for a long time. Prime Minister Modi should move India's economy closer to China in the coming 3 to 5 years. America will try to contain India the way the US did to Japan and is trying to do to China. Or you can be like the EU and be a vassal. Well, India has chosen not to be a vassal. That's very clear now, right? We can see that. So India should move closer to China. So the question Amisha is asking is, should we move closer to China? Prime Minister Modi is visiting China this month. How did the US contain Japanese economic growth? What are my thoughts? Okay. How did the US contain Japanese economic growth? First of all, we have to understand that Japan is under permanent US military occupation. So the US can control each and every aspect of Japan's economy, of Japan's foreign policy, Japan's military policy, everything. The US controls the Bank of Japan, for example. The Bank of Japan can't take a single significant decision without consulting and getting explicit approval from the American generals who actually rule Japan. When it comes to Japan's military policy, everything is controlled by the US. When it comes to Japan's foreign policy, everything is controlled by the US. Japan's constitution, Japan's education system, everything is controlled by the US. The US has more than 130 permanent military bases on Japanese territory. Complete control of Japan, which people don't realize because these things aren't spoken about. How did the US contain Japanese economic growth? In the 1980s, there was this set of accords called the Plaza Accords between the US and Japan. Essentially, this had the effect of forcing the Bank of Japan to change interest rates and make some. I'll not go into the details, but make some modifications in the Japanese economy, which caused a slow, steady, almost imperceptible, gradual, very slow decline in the Japanese economy, Japanese consumption patterns, and so much more. And the consequence of that is that Japan is now almost a middle income country. It was one of the highest income countries in the world in the 1980s. It's now almost a middle income country. The GDP per capita has dropped that much significantly. It's almost half, I would say, of what it used to be. They destroyed Japan's economy, right? But can they do that to India? They don't control the Indian government, the Indian economy, nothing. We are a sovereign nation. Unlike, unfortunately, sadly, Japan. Japan is not sovereign. So sad. Anyway, so that's how the Americans effected this slow, gradual, almost imperceptible implosion of Japan's economy. Now, China experts are warning India that we are next in the America's containment playbook. Well, when you look at the election interference in 2024 general elections, well, that's containment. That's an attempt to contain India. When it comes to the American attempts to play these subnational diplomacy games, that's an attempt to create problems and trouble in India. When it comes to Delhi riots, the whatever happened in Delhi, all that stuff during Mr. Trump's visit in 2019 or whenever it was, well, that's containment. When you have Project K, Cookie Land for Christ, that is containment. When it comes to the American support to Pakistan now, very open, very blatant, very outright support to Pakistan now, that's containment. All of this is containment. So the Chinese, what they're telling us is something we have known for quite some time. It's not something new. The Indian public may not see it. The government of India knows exactly what's happening. Right? It's the same government since 2014, the same set of people, essentially. There's continuity. So the government of India, Prime Minister Modi, they know exactly what the Americans are doing. This is called containment, sure. So the Chinese are not telling us something new. But the fact that they are saying this is interesting. Because China historically has been okay with that. They themselves have tried to contain India, even the Chinese, by supporting Pakistan like they've done so much. The Chinese also have played the same game. But now they are warning that the Americans are playing this containment game. And they are recommending that the Prime Minister Modi should move India's economy closer to China. Well, we'll have to see about that. Look, obviously, there is going to be some kind of decoupling between India and the US economically, based on what Trump is doing, what the Trump regime is doing. Of course, it all depends on what happens over the next year and a half. There's going to be a significant backlash in the US to Trump's actions because it's going to hurt the American public. It's going to hurt them financially, economically, and they're already struggling because of the Biden regime's policies, which cause so much inflation and so much more. Uh, so what should India do? See, clearly India is not going to be a vassal. That decision has been taken now. So India is going to have to pay the price for that, of that. And we are paying the price of that. We're gonna have to, essentially, there could be some more pain coming our way potentially in the coming weeks and months. So America is trying to contain India, sure. So what should India do? Can we move our economy closer to China in the coming months, in the coming 3 to 5 years? So the question is, what does it mean that we should move our economy closer to China? What does it mean? Should we open up our market and make it a dumping ground for Chinese cheap products? That doesn't work. That will cause an even more trade imbalance between India and China. It has to be something that's mutually beneficial. It cannot be beneficial to one country and disastrous for the other country. If we open up our economy to Chinese goods, cheap Chinese goods, it will destroy our manufacturing sector. Because then the Chinese goods will be so cheap and so easily available that Indians will only buy that. The Indian people don't understand the difference, right? The cheapest product is what you'll buy, as long as it's reasonably okay quality. So what does it mean that we should move our economy closer to China? In what way? That's something they will have to, well, elaborate about. So if the Chinese are willing to have some kind of a mutually beneficial relationship, economic relationship, then we can explore that. Then China is a dictatorship, so we don't have to go and talk to Chinese companies and all. We just have to talk to the government, and we can hammer out some kind of agreement, and then we can implement that. It will have to be mutually beneficial. It cannot be something that will destroy India's manufacturing sector. It will have to be something that is mutually beneficial. I'm sure the sky is the limit when it comes to cooperation, potentially, between India and China. So much can be done if the two nations are genuinely willing to work together. It depends. So that will depend entirely, essentially, on the Chinese government. So that is something we have to see. It would be good. It would be beneficial for both countries if that sort of thing happens. But will it happen? It will all depend on the Chinese government's approach. Geopolitical Dubey says, how significant is Prime Minister Modi's upcoming visit to China? Will it infuriate Shri Trump more? Mr. Modi is slated to visit China the end of this month. I think August 31st and September the 1st. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization's summit, probably in Beijing, if I'm not mistaken, or wherever it is, in China. So Mr. Modi will be there. Mr. Xi Jinping obviously is the host, and Mr. Putin will be there, right? It's a pretty significant meeting. It's the first time in God knows how many years Mr. Modi is going to China. Probably the first time in about 7 years. I think the last time Mr. Modi was in China was probably around 2018. So it's after 7 years that he's visiting China, and it's significant because Mr. Putin is also going to be there, and various other leaders of various other SCO nations. It's going to be a pretty significant event. Now, just because the three leaders are there, the big three, Mr. Putin, Mr. Modi, and Mr. Xi, that itself makes it a significant event. There's the potential that there could be bilateral talks between Mr. Modi, official, proper bilateral talks between Mr. Modi and Mr. Xi. That's in the offing, potentially. Mr. Wang Yi is visiting India this month, China's foreign minister, and probably he's going to have detailed discussions with his Indian counterpart, Dr. Jaishankar. And the two foreign ministers will then chalk out the approach that we need to take, and whether a bilateral meeting will happen between Mr. Modi and Mr. Xi. If that happens, it's going to be more significant. And at the end of the day, what will really matter is what is the outcome of this summit. If there is a RIC kind of outcome, then that will be a huge event globally. It'll have huge consequences globally. The whole world will sit up and watch and see and wonder what happens next. So if there is some kind of forward direction that emerges from this summit between the leaders of the three nations, and something significant goes ahead, that will obviously be a set of alarm bells in the US, because it's not just India, it's India, Russia, China. And that will definitely infuriate Shri Trump. But if that happens, Shri Trump only has himself to blame for that, right? I mean, the India-US relationship was great. It was going great. But Mr. Trump comes and dynamites it. So then what does he expect? Shri Trump ji. Funny Guy says, should India exit the Quad? Well, all options are on the table. See, the Quad is well, if you look at the history of the Quad, it is something that was probably thought up by Sri Shinzo Abe of Japan. It was probably his brainchild, the late Sri Shinzo Abe, who was assassinated by God knows who. So the Quad is this quadrilateral kind of alliance or coalition of nations. It's India, it's Japan, it's Australia, and it's the US. And it's not officially a military alliance or any such thing, but the Chinese see it as an anti-China alliance, as an alliance whose sole objective is to contain China. That's how the Chinese see it. Now, a lot could change in the coming days. Maybe the India-China relation equation may change. Maybe India, China, Russia, the trilateral equation may change. A lot could happen. And if things go in such a direction that we no longer perceive a threat or a significant threat from China, if things go in that direction, then India's participation in the Quad is moot. We don't need that. And of course, the US approach, the US attitude will also matter, right? If the US is prioritizing its interests with Pakistan over its relations with India, if the US are supporting Pakistan and strengthening Pakistan and investing in Pakistan, well, then what's the point of India being in a Quad like coalition with the US, which is openly anti-India? You support Pakistan, you're automatically anti-India, aren't you? Right. So all the options, I would say, are on the table right now. It will depend on how things go with China. So Mr. Wang Yi comes to India this month. We will have some kind of indication. Then Mr. Modi goes to China at the end of the month. And how things go there, we will have to see. So it will, to a large extent, depend on the Chinese approach and the Chinese and how things go between India and China. India and Russia, everything is good. But the Quad doesn't really have much to do with Russia. It's more to do with China. So the relationship between India and the US is not good anymore. That's very clear. The US is openly supporting Pakistan. I mean, that should tell you everything you need to know. So all that matters, all that is left now is to see how things go between India and China. If the Chinese are willing to start a new chapter, then it may be possible that India may exit the Quad. That would be a significant, actually, game changer, because that would seal the rift between India and the US. That would be something that India can't walk back from. Once you're out, you're out. After a few months, you can't say, okay, I would like to be back in. It doesn't work like that. So it's a very final decision, this exit from the Quad, potential exit from the Quad. But it will all depend on these factors, like I mentioned. And I think exiting the Quad is also something that's going to be seriously on the table. Amisha says, I think Trump has provided India a once-in-a-generation opportunity to take the next big leap on reforms. The crisis must be fully utilized. But in India, we have all these freebies schemes, Ladli Bahana Yojana and whatnot, and Manrega and whatever it is, freebies schemes. Politicians and some lazy, incompetent people are feasting on taxpayers' money. Allegedly true. Yeah, allegedly, very true, allegedly. So how will we counter Trump, China amid the situation, this is so frustrating? So you are absolutely right that we have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to enact significant reforms in the country. See, one of the major pieces in the jigsaw puzzle when it comes to India's GDP growth rate and India's aspiration to become a 20 trillion, $30 trillion economy, one of the major components of that was India becoming a major manufacturing power. And obviously the country that would absorb the manufacturing would be the US. That's how it was seen, because the US is the world's biggest, richest market, the biggest consumer economy in the world. And if you are manufacturing, if you're a major manufacturing power, you want to export to the US. That's where you make the most money. That's how China became a major power, economic power, right? So now it looks like it's not going to be on the cards, at least as long as Trump is in power, right? As long as the Trump regime is in power, this is not going to be the case. So if we become a manufacturing power, where do we export to? That's the question. The question is, does China need imports? I don't think China needs to import anything because they are the biggest manufacturing power in the world. So then the question is, where do we export to if we become a manufacturing power? Do we export to the EU, the European Union? Well, that's a significantly decent sized market. But well, they are controlled by the US. The EU is a vassal of the US, all these nations. And then the US can choke that off also. So, yeah. So then the question is, then if we become a manufacturing power, who consumes? Who consumes what we manufacture? We'll have to become a manufacturing power that has domestic consumption then. That's also an option. Domestic consumption. We manufacture for ourselves. That can be also something that boosts the economy. But for all of these things to happen, you need reforms in India. There's still too much red tape. There's still allegedly too much allegedly corruption. There's too much inertia. There's too many problems in the country. A lot needs to change. All of these government schemes that are freebie schemes, those need to end. That's when we can free up our economy. I mean the exchequer to invest money in R&D, invest money in defense, invest money in other things. So yeah, this is a great opportunity to enact big bang reforms, huge reforms that will have positive consequences for decades. This is indeed that sort of opportunity. We need to, if you want India to become, let's say, a consumption driven economy, well, then people need to have more money to consume, right? But if you have all this onerous taxes and whatnot, all kinds of taxes people have to pay. If you are an income tax payer, then you're paying income tax, then you're being taxed for everything else also. GST, no matter what you purchase in India, there's GST on it. So how can you say that Indians don't pay tax? Everybody pays tax. So all of this needs to be looked into. We need huge reforms. We need to simplify the taxation regime. We need to make doing business in India way easier than it is right now. We have to essentially unshackle India's economic growth engine. So yeah, this is indeed that sort of opportunity. Now that things are bad with the US, we'll have to look at other avenues for economic growth. So it's that sort of time where we can potentially make huge changes in the way things are done, reforms. So the problem is this, and that's where Amisha is frustrated, rightly so, that if Mr. Modi cuts down on those freebie schemes, well, very soon the BJP will start losing elections because Indians are addicted to freebies, right? All of this will need deep changes in India. The thought process of Indians has to change. Indians need to be taught that freebies are poison. They actually do more harm than good. It makes you completely unproductive. It doesn't allow you to explore your full potential because you're satisfied because the government is giving you free stuff at the expense of everybody else. But to do that, you have to change things deeply, like the education system and all that. So we'll not go there. So I think, so that's the problem. That's the issue that Mr. Modi faces. If he makes these big changes, if he ends these freebies, then he's going to lose the next election. Indians will vote him out of power. They'll vote the BJP out of power. So yeah, it's that sort of situation, catch 22. But something needs to change. So let's see how it goes. But yeah, we do need reforms, huge reforms, major reforms. Animesh Paul says, since India currently lacks technological sovereignty, how would we cope if the US cuts off access to platforms like Google, Meta, WhatsApp, YouTube, and X? Do we have any real alternatives? Isn't now the time to invest in and develop our own technology? How should we plan and execute such an initiative to be ready for the challenging times ahead? That's a question by Animation. There's another question which is along the same lines. This is by C. Joes. I'm a long-term follower of you. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Why is India not acting like China and Russia? We know that our internet and necessary functionalities are functioning on the terms of the West, or from the support of the West, from the West, especially the US. The most important factor is the operating system. The Chinese have their own operating system, Harmony OS, which is not based on Linux. It's an entirely original OS. Yeah. Russia has their own internal autonomous functioning internet, even if the West cuts them off entirely. India doesn't have it. China has the Great Firewall of China. Isn't this a leverage to the West which can be used against us? We aren't even supporting alternatives. Even our government communications are happening via WhatsApp. What if they decide to pull all the Microsoft tactics, like, deny Microsoft services and so on? Will the government, even the basic panchayat functionalities, get doomed? Will we have to go back to using telegrams? I say this to many: at least don't try to purchase everything from a single monopolistic giant like Meta. At least try to shift our main messenger app, which is WhatsApp, to Telegram. Keep it in mind that Meta is not taking proper action against anti-India contents, but they swiftly act and impose strong action against other silly matters. Rectifying these issues or filling the gap in our true autonomy will give us a lot of geopolitical advantages. What do I think? Please include it in your live session. I am including it. It's very important. What you're saying is very, very true. It's very important. I think India is about 2 to 3 years before this sort of thing may happen. Maybe even sooner than that. India needs to have its own operating systems. India needs to be able to manufacture its own PCs and laptops. India needs to have its own apps. India needs to have its own social media platforms. Social media is important. I think it's a vital necessity today in today's world. All Indians are connected today. We understand Indians from all parts of India because of social media. If social media services are denied to India, then Indians will once again be completely isolated and apart from each other. Right? So we need to have our own operating systems. We need to have our own internally manufactured PCs, laptops, whatever, phones. We need to have our own indigenous mobile operating system, our own laptop operating systems, which are independent of anything from the West. Yes, we need to have our own internet. Even if the rest of the world is cut off, we need to be able to communicate with each other. We need to have our own social media platform, at least one. We don't need Meta and Twitter and this and that and everything. At least one social media platform has to be there. Now, the question is, who does this? Who does this? Is the government supposed to create this? Or are Indian private companies supposed to do this? I mean, if you look at the US, all these services that we use, whether it is Meta or Google, WhatsApp, whatever, these are all private companies that have created these products. So ideally, you would want Indian private companies to create world-class products. We have all these IT services companies that offer IT services to the West. Why can't they come up with this? We have the best IT brains in the world. Millions, tens, hundreds of millions of these. So why it's obviously going to be easy for an Indian company, if it decides to create services, platforms, apps, whatever, operating systems, it'll be easy. But they simply don't care. They don't want to do it because they want to keep on playing the game of labor arbitrage with the West. And that's how they've made money thus far. But they're going to be hit very badly now. First of all, the AI, the advent of AI is going to hit everything, all the IT services in India. And secondly, Trump may take some action against Indian IT companies. And Indian IT exports, services exports to the US. It may happen pretty soon. So I think it's a question of time, maybe 2-3 years, possibly, before, maybe even sooner, before this sort of scenario happens. So if the Indian IT companies aren't willing to do this, maybe the Indian government needs to take action. What did Animesh say? Once again, same thing, technological sovereignty. Yes, what happens if the US cuts off access to these platforms? Well, we are left adrift. Right, that's what happens. So obviously, I completely agree with what Sejoy Jose is saying. This needs to be taken up on a war footing. India needs to have its own operating systems. Indian government servants need to immediately stop using Gmail, using WhatsApp. We need to have our own secure communications apps, our own email services. Everything should be indigenized, because the world may very soon decouple and all these services that you're taking for granted may disappear. So very important points are being raised over here, and I completely agree with these points. Spurti says, China has done reverse engineering in many sectors, especially in aviation and aerospace. What's stopping India from doing the same? I have absolutely no idea what is stopping India from doing the same. Let me show you something. I was looking, because I saw this question, I selected this. I was looking up, do we have a list of things the Chinese have reverse engineered? And let me show you what the Chinese, this is just a small aspect of what the Chinese have reverse engineered. So I found this. This is an article from 2014. Okay. Let's see the kind of things the Chinese have reverse engineered. The Chinese-Russian manned Soyuz space capsule, which is now called the Shenzhou manned spacecraft. The Chinese reverse engineered a Russian design. The Russian Sukhoi 27 is now the Shenyang J-11B. Shenyang J-11B. The Russian MiG-17, Shenyang J-5. MiG-19, Shenyang J-6. MiG-19L, MiG-21L. Sukhoi 33, Shenyang J-15, Flying Shark. MiG-21 is the J-17, JF-17 Thunder, Chengdu F-17. MiG-23 MS, Nanchang Q-6. Russian Antonov AN-12, the Shaanxi Y-8. The Yakovlev 130, the Hongdu L-15 Falcon. The F-35 Lightning, F-22 Raptor, the Shenyang J-31 stealth fighter, the MQ-1 Predator, the Chengdu Pterodactyl. They have reversed engineered everything you can imagine: piston engines, jet engines, SNECMA high bypass turbofan. That's the Shenyang WS-10, which failed. Then you have the Shenyang WS-10A, which is based on the Russian Saturn turbofan, Saturn AL-31F turbofan engine. The American Humvee is the Dongfeng, whatever brave soldier thing. Strela manpads, Honging HN5, ballistic missile defense system, S-300. The Chinese have the Hongqi HQ-9. Israeli Spike missiles, they've made their own copy of that. The Russian KH-31 cruise missile, sea skimming cruise missile is the Ying. I mean, this goes on and on. They've reverse engineered anti-ship missiles, lightweight torpedoes, battle tanks, rocket launchers, pistols. Everything you can imagine, the Chinese have reverse engineered that. And does this mean that the Chinese are stupid or bad? No, I think this is what you have to do. Like I always say, buy, beg, borrow, steal technology. No matter what it takes, acquire the technology that is necessary for you to have in line with your national interest. The Chinese have done this. They've been doing this for decades. Since the middle of the 20th century, they've been doing this. Whatever they purchase from another country, they will dismantle and reverse engineer the whole thing. The Russians know it very well. So many Russian products have been reverse engineered by the Chinese. Yeah. But India won't do that. No, we won't do that. Why is it so? Multiple reasons, I would say. One is because of alleged corruption. It is said that allegedly Indian officials received allegedly lots of kickbacks for purchasing products from the West and other countries. So if you're allegedly receiving kickbacks for these sales, why would you want to develop this at home? That's one thing. Secondly, I just don't know. When you have so much bureaucracy and all of that in your organizations, there is no incentive to do something out of the box. You're actually disincentivized to be from being innovative, from doing such things. I think it's a lack of leadership. It's a lack of vision. It's alleged corruption, alleged God knows what else. All of this has meant that we have never bothered to reverse engineer anything. I would say even today, if you were to build the MiG-21, the MiG-21 is being retired now, right? Because it's such an old aircraft. The MiG-21's engine, if you were to manufacture that engine at home in India with brand new components, which means you're manufacturing brand new engines, and if you're manufacturing the entire MiG-21 at home with brand new components, then it's going to be a spanking new aircraft. The reason why the MiG-21s have had so many crashes, it's because these are aircraft that were first purchased in the 1960s and 70s. They're 50, 60-year-old airframes. But if you were to manufacture the same airframes today in 2025, brand new airframes, I promise you the MiG-21 can still take out all of Pakistan's F-16s. But we never bothered to do these things. We got the blueprints, we got everything for the MiG-21. We never manufactured them at home. We simply assembled them at home. A lack of leadership, a lack of vision, a lack of, I don't know what to say. So it's a huge self goal by India, never having reverse engineered anything. We should have reverse engineered everything we bought. The Mirage, the Sukhois, sure, we can pay Russia for it, but we should have reverse engineered everything. The tanks, whatnot. We should reverse engineer those General Atomics drones we have bought from the US. We should reverse engineer the Rafale. We should reverse engineer everything. I don't know what's stopping us from doing this. Every country does it. I don't know why we have not done it. I think hopefully now things will change. But yeah, it's a good point you're raising here. Pranay says, with India pausing a $3.6 billion Boeing deal after Trump's repeated tariff threats, are US-India ties at one of their lowest points in decades? And what does this mean for future defense and trade cooperation? We have paused, frozen, whatever you want to call it, this deal. I think 6 or 8 aircraft we were supposed to buy from the US. These are not civilian aircraft. These are the Boeing Poseidon aircraft. Let me show you what that means. Let's go to Google. Boeing Poseidon. This is the aircraft, the Boeing P-8 Poseidon. How many of these do we have? We have 12 of these. And there's more in the pipeline potentially, but we have chosen now to freeze that order. So these are maritime patrol and reconnaissance aircraft, which essentially are used to detect submarines and potentially even neutralize submarines, enemy submarines in maritime regions of your interest. So that's the aircraft that Boeing deal. It's manufactured by the Boeing company. So that's the deal that's been frozen or paused or whatever you want to call it. So that's happened. Now, does it mean that India-US ties are at one of their lowest points in decades? Yes, it means that. Absolutely. India-US relations are at their lowest point in many decades. And what does it mean for the future, for future defense and trade cooperation? Trade we discussed. Defense, it's over. India is going to buy nothing from the US now. Whatever strategic trust had been built up between the US and India, between India and the US over the past few decades, it's gone. It's evaporated. The moment the US openly sides with Pakistan, it's over. There's zero strategic trust automatically. Whatever trust they had built up, the Americans in India, is gone. It's over. There's going to be no future defense and trade cooperation. Trump was dreaming of selling F-35s to India. Keep dreaming, bro. Not going to happen. So it's over. It's not going to happen. I think whatever else we're supposed to buy, the Striker or Python or whatever anti-tank systems and whatever else was there, it's over. Not going to happen. What happens with jet engines? We'll have to see. We'll have to see about that, because we have this deal with the Americans of purchasing jet engines for our Tejas fighter planes. I think that could be impacted. We'll have to see. So what happens then? Do we purchase engines from the French? Will they fit into the Tejas airframe? The Russian Saturn engines are probably too large for the Tejas. So what happens now? There's going to be a lot of pain that India is going to have to swallow. And if the Americans are making us swallow all this pain, do you think there's going to be any trust left from our side towards them? No, it's over. So there's going to be no more defense cooperation. Trade, we already discussed. Geopolitical Dubey says, how can both Russia and America let an American ally, which is the Philippines, have the Brahmos missile? Is it only to contain China in the South China Sea? And Mriganka Sekhar Biswas says, during his recent India visit, the Filipino president sought more Indian defense technology, including more Brahmos missiles. As the Philippines is a US vassal, unfortunately it is, with permanent US military bases, could this not fall into American hands? And doesn't China fear the same with the arms that it supplies to US-aligned Pakistan? So the Philippines already has a couple of regiments, at least I believe, of the Brahmos missile. Let's quickly Google it. How many Brahmos regiments does the Philippines have? 1 second. Let me put that on the screen. Let's Google it. How many Brahmos regiments does Philippines have? The purchase, okay, 3 missile batteries. Okay, regiments. Okay, Brahmos batteries. Batteries does the Philippines have? 9 additional. So they have a couple of batteries, like was being mentioned here. They have purchased 3, and they have received 2 at least, as far as I remember, and they want more apparently. Right? Yeah. So the Philippines already has Brahmos missiles, and there could be more. They want more. So the question is, the Philippines is a US ally, the US vassal, unfortunately. So if we are selling Brahmos missiles to the Philippines, won't the Americans get their hands on the Brahmos missile and get access to all the technological secrets? Well, you see, whenever a nation, like I've said this before, whenever a nation exports material, exports weapons, let's say, to some other country, you sell them the export version, which is not the full version that you use. So it's going to have some stuff left out. All the critical technologies won't be there. It'll still be a pretty good weapon system. So, for example, if the Americans are selling us F-35s, potentially, like they were hoping, they would have sold us a knocked down export variant, which would be about 1/3 as effective as the American version. That's how it goes. And that too with all those backdoors and kill switches and whatnot. And when the Chinese export whatever they export to Pakistan, that's also the export version. That's not the full version. It's not fully capable. It has things left out and whatnot. So I expect that the Brahmos that's been sold to whoever is going to be the export version. See, the Brahmos missile system is a joint India-Russia production. Right? It's been developed jointly by the two countries. And as such, whenever the Brahmos Corporation sells Brahmos missiles to any country, it first has to take approval from the governments of both India and Russia. And it's only when both nations agree that a sale happens. So if a sale has happened to the Philippines, it means that India and Russia are both okay with it. So they've done their threat and risk assessment and they've said it's fine. That's how it goes. So that's why it's okay to sell it to the Philippines. And obviously the Philippines are concerned about China. China is a big threat to them. And that's why, and even Russia was okay with this. So you see, that's a game that are played in geopolitics, geopolitical games. Right. Amisha says, Putin will meet Trump in Alaska on the 15th of August. Putin is saying he will stop the war in exchange for eastern Ukraine. Do you think Trump will agree to it? Is India's the tariffs on India, are they going to be discussed? This is a major summit. I think this will change geopolitics. Your thoughts on this summit? Will it be successful or will it fail? And Pradey says Trump Putin to meet on 15 August in Alaska, halfway between Moscow and Washington. Beyond optics, what geopolitical calculus does this location and timing signal in the current US-Russia dynamic? So it looks like it's going to be Alaska, somewhere in Alaska. Now, if you look, okay, we haven't opened the map today. So let's go to the map and let's take a look at Alaska. Let's take a look at Alaska. Yeah, here we have it. Okay, well, let's go eastwards. So if you look at Russia's far east, we're looking at the far east of Russia. This is Kamchatka over here. And then you have the Bering Sea, the Aleutian State. And further east of Russia, you have Alaska. And Alaska used to be a Russian territory. Long ago, it used to be owned by Russia, and Russia sold it to the United States. So this is a territory that is now owned by the US, but it's a formerly Russian territory. So that's the deeper historical significance of Alaska. It is something that has both Russian and American, that sort of connection, right? So maybe that's the reason why Trump chose Alaska. Maybe because this was a former Russian territory and now it's American. Maybe there is some significance to that. Beyond that, there is no other geopolitical significance. It's historical significance. So yeah, there is no other geopolitical calculus to using this location. Timing, I don't know. Maybe it's a mutually acceptable date, August 15th. I don't think it has anything to do with India. Because as we know, in August 15th is India's Independence Day, the day we got dominion status from the British. So now, the question Amisha is asking is, Putin is saying that he will stop the war in exchange for eastern Ukraine. Do you think Trump will agree to it? Well, Trump may obviously ask for some concessions, and if those concessions if Mr. Putin is willing to give those concessions, the war may end. So as you can see, Mr. Zelensky has nothing to do with the summit. And let's say that the US and Russia agree to something, that we end the war if this happens. But what if Mr. Zelensky says, no, I will not agree to it? Then what if the EU nations support Zelensky and disobey Mr. Trump? So there's plenty of complications that could happen. There are plenty of potential complications to even if there's an agreement that is reached between Mr. Putin and Mr. Trump, will India's tariffs be discussed in this? Most likely not. This is about Ukraine. This entire meeting, the entire agenda is going to be Ukraine, ending the Ukraine war. Trump is desperate to end the Ukraine war. He wants a Nobel Peace Prize no matter what happens. And if he successfully ends the Ukraine war, well, then he will say that now I'm going to go to Stockholm and get the prize for myself. Even if the Nobel Committee doesn't give it, I'm going to go to Stockholm. I'll take it. So Trump is desperate to end the Ukraine war. He's been saying that he has ended so many wars and whatnot, allegedly, right? And Putin will have his demands. So once again, let's take a look at the map. How much of Ukraine does Russia currently control is the question. So if we look at Ukraine, Ukraine is over here, north of the Black Sea. So roughly a quarter, between a fifth and a fourth of Ukraine is currently controlled by Russia. And it is possible that just before the summit happens, Russia may potentially take more territory just to have a stronger negotiating position. That is certainly possible. So what exactly does Eastern Ukraine mean? That also we will have to see. What does Mr. Putin mean by Eastern Ukraine? So as of now, right now, that's the situation in Ukraine. Russia controls about between a fifth and a fourth of the territory of Ukraine. Where are we? Yeah, this over here. So will the Americans be okay with Russia keeping the territory, or maybe more? Mr. Putin may even say that, you know what, we don't control this much proportion of it, but we want this and this and this also. And Zelensky will have to give it to us, even though we currently don't control it. That also is something that Mr. Putin may ask for. Why not? If you want to negotiate, you've got to negotiate hard. So what do I think? Will the two leaders, Mr. Trump and Mr. Putin, be able to negotiate an end to the Ukraine war on August 15th, this meeting in Alaska? We will have to see. We'll have to see. I think it's less than 50-50. I think it's very difficult to bring about a negotiated settlement of the war without involving Mr. Zelensky, because Mr. Zelensky has been pushed on a pedestal and transformed into this very big figure. So even if Mr. Trump and Mr. Putin agree, Mr. Zelensky may refuse to cooperate. Then once again, Trump may say, I will stop sending aid to Ukraine. Then the EU may also say that, you know what, we will keep on aiding Ukraine. There's so much complications that could happen. So I think right now it's difficult to see this war ending that soon. You may need multiple meetings and multiple sets of negotiations, maybe an ongoing negotiation for a few months, perhaps, at least a few weeks, and that would potentially involve more than just the US and Russia for this war to end. So I think this could be the beginning of that sort of process. Now, once again, about the location. Why not a location in Russia? Why is this meeting happening in Alaska? Why not in Kamchatka in Russia? Has Mr. Trump refused to visit Russia? I mean, what is the deal behind that? And why has Mr. Putin apparently agreed to Alaska? We will have to see why that is the case. Obviously, if Mr. Putin visits the US on a state visit, on an official visit, the Americans can't do anything to him. Yeah, but it's interesting. Interesting, definitely. Okay, General says, is oil and gas the only thing stopping us from becoming an autarky, raw material wise? So what's an autarky? An autarky is a nation or a kingdom or an empire that is completely 100% entirely self-sufficient in resources: oil, gas, coal, iron, steel, fertilizer, agriculture, food, fisheries, everything, chemicals, industry, everything, you're completely self-sufficient. So mainly it's about raw materials, obviously. Mainly. That's an autarky. So I think the only thing that's stopping us from being an autarky is oil and gas. Our reliance, our dependence on importing oil and gas. We don't have sufficient resources that we know of, reserves that we know of oil and gas. And that's why we have to import, I think, 60% or more of our oil and gas from other countries. And that's one of the major Achilles heels of India, that we are dependent on other nations for this critical thing, energy. You see, if you see my geopolitics course, those of you who have purchased it, they will know that no geopolitical activity happens without the expenditure of energy. No human activity is possible without the expenditure of energy. Every single thing, every human activity involves spending energy, burning energy, right? So that's the most critical thing. And yeah, so India imports about 60% or more of its oil and gas from other countries, and that is, I think, the only thing that's preventing India from being an autarky. When it comes to other things like for example, agriculture, when it comes to um, what about metals, iron? I think India is such a huge place. India probably has most of everything it needs apart from oil and gas. So most likely, if this thing is fulfilled, if India discovers large resources of oil and gas somewhere sufficient to um, take care of India's needs, then India is more or less an autarky by that once that happens. So I think, yeah, that's the only missing piece of the puzzle for India to become an autarky. Okay, next question. Okay, this is by Nayan Jyoti Bora. The question is, what was the reason the Chinese army withdrew from Indian territories despite winning the 1962 war? They came up to Assam but somehow withdrew their troops. The 1962 war, right? So the Chinese army did come up to Assam, parts of Assam, and the great, magnificent Shri Nehruji, the Prime Minister of India at that time, he had given an address on All India Radio, saying that my heart goes out to the people of Assam or something. Essentially, some historians have taken it to signify that he was willing to give up Assam, and other people dispute that claim. Right? My heart goes out to the people of Assam. So, I can't do a thing, but my heart goes out to them. That sort of thing. That's what he said. So there is a controversy about that. Some historians say that that's what it meant, that he was giving Assam up, and other people say that it's not the case. Whatever. So the Chinese did reach parts of Assam, but then they withdrew. And what's the reason for that is what the question is. So in 1962, we have to understand what was the Chinese objective. What did they seek to achieve in this war? See, at that time, India's leader, Prime Minister, was Mr. Nehru. And China's dictator was Shri Mao Zedong, Mr. Mao Zedong. Now, Mr. Nehru was a self-styled statesman, global statesman. He would go around the world and give lectures to countries, moral lectures, and he was the leader of the non-aligned movement, one of the leaders, and so on. So the Chinese were very annoyed and irritated with this approach, and they could see that India's economy was doing terribly under the leadership of Shri Nehruji. India's growth rate was crawling. India was not doing well at all. India was being misgoverned. There were so many problems in India, but Mr. Nehru was going around as a great world leader. And the Chinese probably knew that India's armed forces were not being supplied properly, not being taken care of properly by the government. Indian armed forces were probably not in a very good shape, and so on, right? From the perspective of supplies and ammunition and arms and equipment and whatnot. So the Chinese said, we need to teach India a lesson. That's what Mao Zedong intended in the war. He wanted to humiliate India, teach India a lesson, and he wanted to humiliate Mr. Nehru. That was the objective. And obviously the military objectives were to consolidate China's occupation of Tibet and take some more Indian territory. So some Indian territory the Chinese had already encroached upon. In the 1950s, Aksai Chin, the Chinese built a road through Aksai Chin, and the government of India did not know for a couple of years. That's how deep the slumber was in the Nehru government. So the Chinese wanted to solidify their hold on Aksai Chin and probably nibble away at some more Indian territory. So they achieved all of that. They defeated the Indian military, because India's military was very woefully ill-equipped, and the Indian government refused to use the Indian Air Force for some reason. and so much more. I mean, you can read that book, Himalayan Blunder, which is somewhere here, in which you will see all the details. Himalayan Blunder by Brigadier J.P. Dalvi, John Dalvi. So the Chinese objective was to humiliate India, to defeat the Indian army, and to take more territory, and to humiliate Mr. Nehru. And they achieved all of that. And then they realized they've taken too much territory, and they probably did not have any intention of holding more territory than the parts of Tibet that they were interested in. Because if you take on more territory, then it becomes a kind of an additional burden, because you're occupying the territory, you have to place your armed forces there, and the people obviously don't like China. The people are Indian, you may have to pacify the people, maybe all that stuff. So it's complicated. The Chinese probably wanted to only hold on to Himalayan territory and the Tibetan territory, and whatever parts of India they regarded as strategically important for them, whatever they wanted to occupy, they had captured. And they most likely had no objective of taking parts of Assam or the whole of Assam. So they realized they had gone too far, and they withdrew to the lines that they had predefined for themselves, because they had achieved their military and political objectives. So that's probably why, that's the reasons why they probably decided to withdraw from the parts of Assam that they had encroached into, because they had achieved the objectives they had set out to do, and this was more than that, and they didn't want this. That's what. Mriganka Sekhar Biswas says Mizoram is biometrically enrolling over 35,000 refugees from Myanmar and Bangladesh. What internal security risks does India face, and why is the government permitting this? So if you go to Google, okay, let's Google this. What's happening? What exactly is going on? Mizoram refugees, Mizoram refugees biometric. Let's see this. This is from 1 day ago. Mizoram launches biometric enrollment for 33,000 refugees from Myanmar and Bangladesh. Okay, 33,000 refugees are currently taking shelter in all 11 districts of Mizoram. 2,000 something are from Chittagong hill tracts in southern Bangladesh, southeast Bangladesh, and the rest are from Myanmar. The refugees are mostly Kukis, mostly Chin tribes, also called Kukis. They have almost full ethnic and cultural similarity with the majority Mizos of Mizoram. So the Mizoram, what's happening is that Mizoram is giving shelter to Kukis who have come in from Myanmar and come in from the Chittagong hill tracts region of Bangladesh. Kukis. Right? Is this being done with the assent, with the approval of the central government? Or is the central government kind of allowing this because this has already happened? We also know that, it has been alleged very strongly multiple times over and over again that Mizoram was the conduit for pushing in God knows how many lakhs of Kuki infiltrators from Burma into Manipur, right? And now Mizoram is giving, it is biometrically enrolling 35 or 33,000 refugees. I think it's very concerning. Allowing foreigners to squat on your territory is extremely dangerous for national security. What compulsions does the government of India have? Like I've said, this project K, Cookie Land for Christ, is a US government project. And the objective is to create an artificial country. At least that was the objective during the Biden regime's tenure, to create an artificial nation out of parts of Manipur, out of Mizoram, out of parts of Burma and parts of Bangladesh, an artificial cookie Christian nation. And this was alleged. This allegation was made multiple times by the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, not by some random journalist or whatever, newsreader. This was made by the Prime Minister of Bangladesh. So you've got to take it very seriously. This was a real thing. Project K, Cookie Land for Christ. And now what's the status of that? We're not sure. But there is the involvement of the US in this. This entire cookie issue. The foreigners who are now squatting in Indian territory and occupying Indian territory. So, and does the Mizoram government have connections? the then Chief Minister of Mizoram, I think on US territory, he had said something about reunifying with some parts of Burma or something. I think there's a clip of that on my channel somewhere. So I think there's a significant amount of foreign hand in this. And by foreign hand, we clearly mean the superpower itself, right? So maybe there are some compulsions right now. But overall, this is a huge national security issue. You are allowing foreigners on your soil, foreigners who have no allegiance to the government of India, who have no allegiance to the nation of India, who have no cultural affinity with India. And if they are squatting on our territory, it's a huge problem for us. So I think at some point in time, the government of India will have to evict every single foreigner from Indian territory, whether it is in Mizoram, whether it's in Manipur, or wherever else. Expel them all, deport them all. You don't have to put them on planes. You just have to make them cross the border back into Burma. That's it. Or wherever else. Okay, Rahul Dunake says, can simple clapping of hands cause gravitational waves? If it's the case, then how powerful should be the LIGO device to make such a minuscule reading? Simple clapping of hands. Can the clapping of hands cause gravitational waves? So if you study general relativity, you will know that any kind of acceleration of a mass will cause gravitational waves. Acceleration of mass, which also means deceleration. So when my hands are at rest over here, they are stationary. Now when I clap, it means my hands accelerated towards each other and then stopped, which means decelerated. So when you have acceleration and deceleration of a mass, my hands have mass obviously, then you're going to have gravitational waves. Even this will cause gravitational waves, but these gravitational waves are going to be extraordinarily faint. The amplitudes are going to be minuscule. What's the amplitude? A wave has two things, frequency and amplitude, right? If you look at waves in water, they have frequency, which means how often per second does the waveform appear, and they have amplitude, which means how tall are the waves. Amplitude and frequency, how many times per second and how tall are the waves. So gravitational waves are extremely faint, which means they have very small amplitudes. When two black holes collide or merge, or when a black hole collides with a neutron star, that causes a gravitational wave tsunami. Even that is so faint that you need a something like LIGO, whose arms, which is an interferometer with 4 kilometer arms, to barely measure that signal, right? So when you have the clapping of hands, you can very quickly do a rough calculation of the strain amplitude. Okay, well, I'll not tell you what that is because I don't explain physics then. There's something called strain amplitude. You can estimate that by just plugging in some numbers. Let's say my two hands have a mass of 1 kilogram each. Let's say the frequency is about 40 hertz of the clap, and so on. You can put in some rough numbers, and that gives you typically, what kind of amplitude the wave is going to have. So it gives you the strain amplitude, and you will find that from that you can determine how large the interferometer needs to be. The instrument, LIGO-like instrument, has to be. So for LIGO, the arms are 4 kilometers long, roughly. If you were to create a LIGO kind of instrument, interferometer, that can measure the gravitational waves produced by this clapping, you will find that the arms, I did a rough calculation before this show, so you'll find that the arms of the interferometer need to be between 40 million light years and 10 raised to 15 light years in length, each arm. So imagine an instrument whose arms are 40 million light years long each, and they are at a right angle to each other, right? The Milky Way, our galaxy, home galaxy, is about 100,000, 1 lakh light years across in diameter. The nearest galaxy, Andromeda, is about 2.5 million light years away, right? But if it's 40 million light years, that's further than the Andromeda galaxy. And if it's 10 raised to 15 light years, that's bigger than the diameter of the observable universe. So essentially what I'm saying is that you can never build an instrument that can detect the gravitational waves that are caused by the clapping of two hands. That's how faint the gravitational waves are. That's how weak the gravitational force is. Very interesting thought experiment. And Rahul asks a different question. What's the difference between a twister, a tornado, and a hurricane? So, first of all, a twister and a tornado is the same thing. A twister is just a different name, a more colloquial name for a tornado. Tornado. That's the Spanish way of saying tornado. So, and what's a hurricane? A hurricane and a tornado. Okay, so we're talking about two classes of phenomena: tornadoes and hurricanes. Twister is the same as tornado. So, both of these phenomena are rotating storm systems, but they are very different in their scale and size and formation and whatnot. So, hurricane, what is a hurricane? In India, we call it a cyclone. Okay, so a hurricane or a cyclone is a massive, enormous storm system. Let's take a look at Google. Okay, let's see an image of a cyclone or a hurricane, a satellite image. They are visible from satellite images. Hurricane. Okay, so let's take a look at this. So over here you can see a hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico, or near Florida. This over here is Florida, this peninsula, and you can see how large the hurricane is. It's enormous. So hurricanes are gigantic storm systems that can span hundreds of kilometers across in diameter, and they can affect entire coastlines. They can affect entire regions. But if you look at a tornado, it's a much smaller storm system. Typically, there will be tens of meters in diameter, sometimes a kilometer or two in diameter. But these systems, tornadoes, they are extremely concentrated and intense storm systems. So hurricanes, these things, they typically form over warm ocean waters, and they require a specific set of atmospheric conditions to form. Okay, and these hurricanes, they can develop over days or weeks. They develop slowly. But tornadoes, they form from thunderstorms, severe thunderstorms, and they can form in a matter of minutes. They can form in front of your eyes, right? And hurricanes can last for days or weeks sometimes, and they will move across oceans, they will move across land. Tornadoes will last for minutes or just an hour, and hurricanes typically occur over oceans, and tornadoes generally occur over land, and so on and so forth. So that's the essential difference between a tornado and a hurricane. Okay, Nayan Jyoti Bora says, what's your views on the HOPE mission by ISRO? What are the implications and what's the possibility of the mission being a success? HOPE mission, let's quickly Google it. It's a mission designed to simulate the conditions that you encounter when you're living on Mars or possibly the moon. So ISRO HOPE, and this is in Leh, not in Leh, it's in Ladakh. So this mission is happening in Ladakh. Where do we see? Which one do we see? Let's take a look at this. ISRO launches HOPE mission in Ladakh to simulate astronaut life for Gaganyaan. It's a 10-day high altitude mission, isolation mission. So you'll have this sort of igloo kind of facility in which you'll have some people who will be isolated for a certain number of time, certain number of days. The Russians have and the Americans have done such missions in the past. So isolating astronauts on the Earth in simulated environments that are similar to what you will find if astronauts will be on the moon or on Mars. And the Russians and Americans may have done missions that are in excess of 1 year long. This mission that we are launching in Ladakh, it's a 10-day mission, high altitude isolation mission. August 1, it was launched, so it could get over in a couple of days maybe. It's at 14,000 feet. It simulates the extreme conditions that astronauts might face on long duration space missions to the moon or Mars. It's part of preparations for India's Gaganyaan human spaceflight program and future interplanetary exploration. There's a 2-person crew. ISRO has selected somebody who's a PhD candidate at Purdue University and somebody else who is a planetary science graduate from the University of Aberdeen, because maybe Indian universities don't have anybody. I don't know what's the deal. Anyhow, so it's a mission that's designed to simulate the conditions that astronauts will face if they're on a mission to the moon or Mars or maybe space, isolation and so on. It's good. Will the mission be a success? Of course, it will be a success. It's a 10-day mission. Anybody can survive 10 days in isolation with somebody else. But the real problem is when you are stuck with somebody for a year or two. Let's say you're traveling to Mars on a space capsule, a spacecraft, with let's say a 3-person crew. The travel, the voyage to Mars will typically last about 9-10 months. Okay, if it's during the launch window, the optimum time to launch to Mars. So you have 3 people who are in a small capsule stuck with each other. If you're stuck with somebody that you don't get along with, it becomes a nightmare. So you have to do psychological profiling and what so much more of each astronaut to see whether they are compatible and they'll be able to work well together. And then you have to prepare them for such missions by doing things like this HOPE mission. So you simulate the conditions of a space flight, of a long space mission, and are you able to survive together in isolation and get along together and do all that's required and so on. So that is what this mission is like. This HOPE mission, it's a 10-day mission. Eventually in the future we'll have longer missions that will happen. And Ladakh is a great environment for this sort of mission. It's very isolated, very few people there, very harsh climatic conditions, high altitude, whatnot. So it kind of simulates being stuck in space, or being on a mission to Mars or the moon or something. So yeah, it's great to see this happen. Xi Jinping says, what's your opinion on the assassination of the last Mauryan empire by Pushyamitra Shunga? Did Pushyamitra Shunga really persecute Buddhists? So the last Mauryan emperor, his name was Brihadrata Maurya, and his commander-in-chief, his senapati, was this gentleman called Pushyamitra Shunga. And during a military parade, Pushyamitra Shunga assassinated Brihadrata Maurya and took over the leadership of the empire. So I believe Pushyamitra Shunga's justification for this was that the emperor was not carrying out his duties. He was running the empire into the ground. The empire was in trouble. You had Greek invaders who typically were ruling in Gandhar because of the consequences of the Seleucid Empire being in that region. So there was a pact, there was a formal treaty alliance between the Maurya Empire and the Seleucid Empire. And after the dissolution of the Seleucid Empire, the governors that they had left behind in the western part of Gandhar, they became kings in their own right. And eventually they became more powerful. And when the Maurya Empire declined, the Greeks started making inroads further eastwards into India itself, from the outskirts of Gandhar all the way to India itself. And Pushyamitra Shunga said that the last Maurya Empire was not doing his job in safeguarding the country. So he assassinated Brihadrata Maurya and became the emperor of India. But Pushyamitra Shunga never called himself emperor. He always called himself Senapati, even when he was ruling the country. And he did fight a significantly long war with the Indo-Greeks and defeated them. So good job, sir. Good job. So that's how it goes. Did Pushyamitra Shunga really persecute Buddhists? Well, if you look at Buddhist texts, they say that he was bad and he persecuted both the Dharma and all that. But if you look at it from an independent perspective, neutral perspective, most likely it's because Pushyamitra Shunga was no longer giving all the free benefits and all that the Buddhists were getting from Brihadrata Maurya. Pushyamitra did not persecute Buddhists, but he just stopped giving them freebies and special treatment, preferential treatment. Then you have texts written by Sri Lanka, by the king of Lanka at the time, whose name I forget, in which it's very clear that Buddhist monasteries and stupas and all that were flourishing just as well in India during the time when Pushyamitra was the emperor. And you even had embassies from Suvarnabhumi, which is Thailand, the Southeast Asia region, who had come to India with donations to create Buddhist stupas, and they were allowed to do that by Pushyamitra Shunga. So these allegations that Pushyamitra Shunga was a Brahminical tyrant and oppressor of Buddhists, it's a lie. That's a lie. Fabrication. All right. Bullipalli Bolli Palli Ashish says, what was Russia's religion before Christianity? I googled and it says Slavic paganism. It says that Slavic paganism was followed, which is the polytheistic religion. If Russia was not invaded by any country like South Korea or Japan, how did the religion change gradually? Similarly, how will India continue its own religion without succumbing to other religious forces that are looming onto the people and their mindsets? Okay, Slavic paganism, that's correct. What was Slavic paganism? Slavic paganism was a subset of European paganism. What was European paganism? It was nothing but the European version of the old Indo-European religion, which is the Vedic religion. It's the same thing. If you look at religion, let's call it Hinduism. If you look at the way Hinduism is practiced in India, in different parts of India, it's very different manifestations of Hinduism. Very different gods and goddesses. Looks like there's no connection, but it's all connected, right? We understand that in India. We're a very diverse country. The kind of Hinduism that's practiced in Assam is very different from what's practiced in Manipur. It's very different from what's practiced in Maharashtra, very different from what's practiced in Punjab, very different from what's practiced in Tamil Nadu, and so on and so forth. Very different manifestations of the same religion, same culture, same civilization. Similarly, you had the old Indo-European religion all the way from the western boundaries of India all the way to Ireland. Polytheism. The same gods worshipped under different names. The Slavs, they had a god called Perun, who's the same as Parjanya, a Vedic god. The Irish, their mother goddess was Danu, the river goddess, who was a Rigvedic river goddess. So much more. But here's an interesting thing. Let me show you something very interesting. So the Slavs, okay, they had this god called Triglava. So this is a Slavic god, three-headed god, okay, three heads, whose name is Triglav. Now, if you go down, if you look at the details of Triglav, so Serbian folk tradition says that Triglav is the Holy Trinity. It means that for Serbs, Triglav is the Holy God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Okay, that's a very Abrahamic interpretation of this deity. Now, in Serbian mythology, Triglav consists of Vishnu, Ziva, and Brajanj. The Holy Trinity. Vishnu, Ziva, and Brajanj. It sounds like Brajanj, Vishnu, and Shiva. It's essentially the same thing as Shiva, Vishnu, and Brahma, right? And Serbian folk tradition says that Triglav lives in India. And India was the home of the Serbs. And Serbs had to leave because of a huge political upheaval of some kind. Sounds like a war between many kings. Very ancient folk memories, right? We don't know the time of migration from India to Europe and all that. Very, very ancient memories are still preserved in these folk traditions in Europe. So the Serbs are a Slavic people. The Russians are the major Slavic people. So they practiced the old religion, which is just a European version of the old Vedic religion. Okay, that's what it was before Christianity. Russia was not invaded, but there were invasions. There were the Northern Crusades. It's a long story, long brutal story of the imposition of Christianity across Europe. It was imposed by force. It was hammered into the minds and practices of the people. It was done by force. You had Northern Crusades. You had other Crusades. Crusades not just against what they called Outre-mer, which is the present day Israel region, but crusades against Europeans themselves. Very brutal, very, very bloody crusades against Europeans. And that's how step by step Christianity was imposed upon the people of Europe. And the same thing happened in Russia. And there was tremendous resistance to the imposition of Christianity, especially among the Slavic people. Until the 18th, 19th century, you had resistance against the imposition of Christianity. And even today, to a large extent, the Slavic people, some of them practice very superficial Christianity with very deep elements of the pre-Christian native religion of the Slavic people. Very long story, very interesting story as well. And if you want to know how Christianity was imposed upon the people of Europe, I would say read the book by Catherine Nixie, right? The Darkening Age. I have it somewhere. I'll show it some other day. Similarly, how will India continue its own religion without succumbing to other religious forces that are trying to intrude upon the country and the people? Well, in India, see, our religion, our culture needs state support. It dies without state support. We will have people practicing it at various levels, but it truly flourishes only when you have state support in India. And historically, our kings, emperors, they provided state support to our culture and religion. Right now, India is a secular country. That's why our culture is slowly withering away. So something will have to be done about that. We will need better governments, a better system of governance, perhaps. Yeah. Okay, let's take a couple of questions more. Anubhavika says, Happy Rakshabandhan. Well, Happy Rakshabandhan to you also and everybody else who's watching. Happy Rakshabandhan. I am currently pursuing BDS, Bachelor of Baccalaureate in Dental Surgery, perhaps, Dental Surgeon UG undergraduate from a government college in India. Is dentistry a waste in India, as said by many others? What are your views? Should I stay in India or search for foreign opportunities? I love my country, don't want to go abroad, and so on. India has a population of 1.4 billion people, and our dietary habits are changing. Indians are now beginning to adopt the dietary habits of people in the West. Lots of sweet products, lots of processed foods and all, which is causing tremendous problems, dental problems in India's population. I think for a dentist, India should be a heaven. If you have your own private practice in some part, in some city or some town or wherever, you're going to have a lifelong supply of customers. I don't think dentistry is a waste in India. I don't think so. I think there's huge, there's going to be a huge scope for dentistry practice in India. Dentists will always have work to do. In the West, of course, if you stay there, you earn a lot more money, no question about it, but you won't have as many people coming to you as you will have in India. So I think, if you really prefer to stay in India, you'll do just well in India. You'll do great in India. My views about whether you should stay in India or look for foreign opportunities, it's entirely up to you. I tell people that go wherever you are treated best. Many people ask me, should I stay in India and serve the country, or should I go abroad and earn elsewhere? I would say that you should go wherever you are able to rise to the fullest extent of your potential. If you really love India, serve India, go abroad, spend 20, 30 years there, go and become very wealthy, then come back to India, and then invest your wealth in India. If you are just starting off, you have no money, you can't serve India. Better go abroad, earn a tremendous amount of money, then come back to India with that money and then invest that money in the right places in India. So I would say it's up to you. If you get good opportunities abroad, and if you think that that's something you should explore, I would say certainly go ahead and explore foreign opportunities. It doesn't mean that you don't love your country if you go abroad, right? But if you don't want to go abroad, I think you will do just fine in India. So it's entirely up to you. All the best, man. All the best. And Pranay Paul says, this is not a geopolitics question, which is fine. I watched your announcement about the future strategy for this channel. You're the reason I first discovered geopolitics. And since then, you've been a rock solid pillar in my learning journey. As someone curious yet facing many life challenges, I want to ask, when you first realized the issue that led to this change, what was your immediate reaction and how did you tackle it to swiftly move forward and aim higher in a new direction? Many of us face obstacles, but it's often the speed and clarity of our decisions that define our lives. If possible, please share how you approached this turning point. I'll always well, thank you so much, sir. First of all, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. You asked great questions, so I really like those. So my announcement yesterday was about me ending the geostrategy podcast, the geostrategy series and the Indian interest series, and what happened. So it's been a couple of months since I started this, and from the very beginning, I saw that the platform, which is YouTube, was hitting those videos with limited ads. It means that ads will not be served, or very limited ads will be served on those videos. Well, that is not a problem. I don't care whether ads are running or not on the videos, as long as the videos are being viewed, right? I'm not in this for making money from the videos. Money comes, I have no issue with that. But if YouTube wants to limit the ads, that's fine. But from the first episode itself, it was hit with limited ads. Then most of the other episodes were also hit with limited ads immediately. And the views obviously were very, very low. And people have been saying for a long time they're not getting notifications or whatever. So it looks like there is some kind of action being taken against about the channel and the kind of content I'm putting out. So it became very clear after time. So I thought, I've just started this series, geostrategy. I've also restarted Indian interest. Let's continue for a while and let's see the pattern. in the data. You have to let data drive your decisions. So after 15 episodes, I've seen that there's a very clear, consistent pattern that the videos are being hit with limited ads, and maybe it's a message being sent to me. So you've got to heed the message. So that's why I decided that, okay, let's take this choice, let's make this choice and end this series. I can still write articles about geopolitics on a new website, and I can put out everything over there, and whoever wants to take a look at it, read it, they can do it. So that's why I made the announcement. So I first let some data come to me. I did this for a couple of months, even though from the very first day I noticed what was happening. So I gave it some time, and once the pattern was established beyond any doubt whatsoever, I said, okay, fine, let's quickly take the necessary steps in the right direction. And I anyway had all these pending book projects and all. So I said that, okay, I'll now focus on that, and I'll focus on my writing. It's been a long time since I've written seriously, and it's something that is actually, I am primarily a writer more than a speaker. So, it's good to get back to that. And so that's why I made the decision. So when you're faced with, so it's all about turning difficulties into opportunities. I'm having to end this, but I can use that opportunity to pivot to something else and make it also productive and hopefully useful. So it's all about using difficulties and turning them into opportunities, and always be positive, always find a solution to whatever problems you're facing. So that's that's always been my approach to things. Right, that brings me to the end of today's of the questions I selected for today. Let me take a couple of questions from the live chat. Let's take a couple of questions. What do we have on the live chat? Let us see. First of all, Ankitaji, thank you very much. Really appreciate that. I have some. Okay, what is this? McLevin says Trump got the leaders of Armenia and Azerbaijan to sign peace agreements. Do you think it will last? How will Turkey and Israel react to this? I haven't yet seen the contents of this agreement. What are the terms of the agreement? Is it a peace agreement and so on? We'll have to see about that. Do I think it will last? I don't think it will last forever. Trump is going to be in power for 2-3 more years, 3.5 more years, right? 3 more years, 3.5. What happens after that? We'll have to see. Trump is going to be there for a while, and then he's going to be gone, and he cannot become president for a third time. So then maybe something else happens. So I think it's a temporary thing. But I haven't really seen the terms of the agreement, so I don't know yet. Okay. Hensi Penguin says, how are you, sir? Well, I'm doing very well. How are you doing? Right. Okay. McLevin says Donald Trump gets Nobel Prize for forming RIC. All right. Let's give him the prize for that. Absolutely. Okay. Sridhar says, what about the buffer state Nepal and its monarchy? Is there a chance of a coup in Nepal? What will be the impact on India? Look, I don't see Nepal as a buffer state. I see it as our civilizational brother state. And what's the chance of a coup in Nepal? What will be the impact be on India? The chance of a coup in Nepal, I don't know. Is there a chance of a coup in Nepal? The current government, there's been this demand for a restoration of the monarchy in Nepal, and a lot of people want Nepal to return to its original form, which is a Hindu nation. Will that happen? Will that be the reason for a coup? Is monarchy potentially going to come back? I don't know. Right now, it looks like there is less of a chance of these things happening. Okay. Have you seen the show Dark? I haven't seen the show Dark. I haven't. I hear it's science fiction of some kind. I haven't seen it. Don't have time to watch stuff, unfortunately. I would love to. Is the world moving towards a bifurcation of the world order? Can things go back to normal after Trump leaves? No, I think the changes Trump will do are going to be permanent changes. They're going to totally transform the world order. Things that he has set in motion are going to be very hard to undo. For example, the relationship between India and the US, that's altered permanently. That whatever trust India may have had or may have developed over the past 20-30 years, it's disappeared. It's disappeared after Trump's actions vis-a-vis Pakistan. So is it a bifurcation of the world order we're seeing? Right now, it's a multipolar world order, but depending on how things go between India, China, and Russia, there could be a bifurcation also. So it may be multipolarity or it may be bipolarity of some kind. We'll have to see. It will all depend on what happens in the next few months by the end of this year, potentially. Okay, I'm going to end this now. We have crossed 2 hours and 10 minutes, so let me end this session over here. And tomorrow I'm going to have another live stream. It's going to be a super chat live stream, only geopolitics tomorrow. So please go ahead and ask your questions as many as you want tomorrow, and we'll take it forward. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Keep asking questions, keep raising your standards, and I will see you in the next live stream. Take care. Good night, good day. Bye-bye. See you soon.